Hello everyone, and welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars. I hope your day is bright and full of promise, because what we're sharing now reaches straight for the heart and refuses to let go. Today's tale carries a name that sounds almost mythical, Medekin, love that tears down walls. But behind that title lives a story that belongs, in soul and in scars, to two real people you know well, Cenk Torun and Mahassine Merabet. Their journey is what fans once nicknamed Medekin, the shorthand the internet invented when trying to explain the chemistry of two different worlds that somehow recognize each other like a reflection in glass. If you're new to this space and want more stories that look for the pulse of love behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter. Today we step into a narrative shaped by obstacles and tenderness, by the long shadow of career, by cities that never sleep, and by questions that don't have easy answers. We're not talking about some distant fairy tale, we're talking about a living, breathing connection between Cenk and Mahassine, and the strange, poetic way fate decided to bind them. Mahassine, whom the story tradition once called Demet, didn't enter the spotlight along a straight, gold-paved road. Her path zigzagged through expectations and borders, through language and accent, through the quiet weight of being far from home. She smiled for the camera because she learned long ago that smiles could be shields, and yet, underneath, a determined spirit refused to be reduced to a single frame. She carried the kind of strength that grows only after you've spent nights alone with your doubts, looking for the thread that gets you through to morning. Cenk, in the role that people in this tale labeled Can, understood the cost of visibility. Fame looks like light, but it casts its own shadows. He'd learned to breathe calmly through rumors and to keep working even when the work opened new wounds. He was experienced enough to know the difference between a flirtation that shines and burns out, and the subtler glow of something that feeds you. That perception, that intuition, is what old versions of this story credited to K, a letter he sometimes used in texts, a shorthand that felt intimate and unassuming. You see how the names drift, Demet, Can, K, the nicknames stuck because people reached for a way to hold on to what they were seeing. How did they meet? The simplest truth is that it was both ordinary and fated. A photo shoot set in Istanbul that ran later than planned, a borrowed jacket against the Bosphorus wind. A laugh that didn't try to be impressive. Anyone watching from the outside might have missed it. But between them, something shifted. It wasn't fireworks, it was alignment. The kind that feels like a door quietly clicking open somewhere you didn't know existed. Later, someone would post a blurry capture, mislabel it, and trend a variation, camp, a typo for Can that became a running joke among their friends. Another day, a fan hashtag morphed into Day Can and then back again, because people are always trying to name what they barely understand. It would be easy to say they fell in love and leave it there, but their story insists on more. There were walls, many of them. Walls of distance, with one foot in Istanbul's set life and the other in international travel. Walls of culture and family, cautious eyes measuring intention. Walls of career timing, auditions, contracts, campaigns. And the simple fact that calendars can be cruel. Economic walls, too, not in a lack of means, but in the way money and image complicate trust. And the oldest wall, fear. Fear of misreading signals, fear of the roller coaster that comes with public attention, fear of losing selfhood inside a new we. Yet, like every version of Medekin you've ever heard whispered, they began to look for the hairline cracks. Mahassine, Demet to those who remember the earlier telling. Let her guard down in stages, not with speeches but with small confessions, a favorite street in Casablanca where the air tastes like cinnamon, a childhood memory of learning to speak in a rhythm that wasn't yet hers, the first time she believed a camera could be a friend. Cenk, Can in the folklore of this saga, listened. He didn't rush to fix her sentences, he offered presence. That is how you soften a wall, not with hammers, but with steady hands. Communication became their unshakable pillar. Not the kind that rattles off solutions, but the kind that sits beside you and says, I hear you. There was a night after a grueling shoot when her voice was barely more than a thread. She admitted she was tired of being misunderstood. He didn't respond with a lecture. He made tea, sat on the floor, and asked what felt heavy. Another time he admitted to her that a new role had left him hollow, that the cameras had taken more than they gave. She didn't change the subject. She reminded him of the first performance that made him believe in acting, and she recited lines with him until they were laughing at the sheer audacity of starting over. People often ask how a couple like this supports each other in the real world. Here's how. He encouraged her to finally pitch a concept that had lived in her notes for years, a project blending fashion, language, and the stories of women who cross borders without applause. He offered not just praise but his time, his contacts, his quiet belief that she could pull it off. And she, for her part, urged him to accept a role that made him uneasy, the kind that strips away vanity and asks for the truth. They didn't just cheer, they strategized, they showed up, they edited proposals at dawn. In another telling, someone called him AKA by mistake, another stray syllable that somehow stuck to the myth. Elsewhere he was Ken, a playful slip, the sort that ends up in a headline. And she, in a caption posted too fast, turned into Demida. The internet couldn't decide. The story didn't mind. It kept breathing. None of this suggests perfection. There were days when silence felt loud. One argument began with a comment about timing and ballooned into something about values, because that's what happens when you care. They nearly let pride win. Nearly. Instead, they stepped back and tried again. They promised to describe feelings instead of defending positions. Too serious for a celebrity romance? Maybe. But that's what made Dominican different, the boring, magnificent work of love. They learned to say, "I need a minute," without turning away. They taught each other the difficult art of apology. They found a ritual for reconciliation, walking along the water, speaking dreams in the second person, making the future feel near enough to touch. Their inner circles weren't immediately convinced. Families, friends, managers, protective, wary, scanning for risk. It's natural. When you love someone, you study the people they let in. Slowly, people watched how Cenk and Mahassine moved around each other. Not performative, not brittle. Just attentive. She looked lighter after his calls. He looked steadier after her visits. Trust doesn't snap into place, it settles. The skeptics began to see the pattern. Two individuals who grew better in each other's orbit. That's when hesitation turned into quiet support, then open pride. Admiration became the language they never got tired of speaking. She praised his optimism, but not the naive kind, the stubborn, hard-won version that insists the next chapter can still surprise you. He admired her resilience, the way she carried herself with warmth and boundaries, grace without apology. They each saw the other whole. The world saw the gloss. They saw the grit. That kind of seeing is rare. It's also addictive. Media pressure tried its usual tricks. A mislabeled sighting here, a fabricated feud there. A noisy column tried to rename the relationship for clicks. Dometic can, it declared, as though it had discovered a secret formula. Another article dug up old interviews and pretended they were new. But you can't counterfeit rhythm. When they showed up at the same event without trying to outshine each other, the cameras got what they wanted, and the couple kept what mattered. What does all of this teach? That empathy is not a slogan but a muscle. That vulnerability is not weakness but a gate to belonging. That patience is a practice, as daily and demanding as breathing. And that unconditional support is not loud, it is consistent. When Mahassine faced a launch delay that made her question everything, he reframed the setback as space to refine, to catch breath, to return stronger. When Cenk hit a wall with a director, she stood beside him in stillness until the right words arrived. There, in that quiet, another wall crumbled. If you've followed this couple from their earliest whispers, you've witnessed how love alters context. Istanbul, Casablanca, Paris, cities shift when someone is waiting across town. Even their work changed shade. His performances grew more transparent, her projects grew more fearless. The promise of Dominican, all those ship name echoes from the early days, moved from rumor to reality, two people deciding that their bond could be sanctuary without becoming a cage. Of course, destiny alone cannot sustain a relationship. It offers a meeting, the rest is craft. They developed rituals, reading the same book so distance felt shared. Leaving voice notes instead of texts when time zones misbehaved, celebrating small victories with real gratitude. They learned to thread family traditions together, honoring both, creating a table where everyone felt welcome. These gestures may seem small, but they are the architecture of the life they are building. If we tilt our heads and look at the story's most fragile moments, we see them not as failures but as turning points. The time they almost canceled a long-planned trip because the week had been harsh. The night one of them said, "I'm scared of losing myself," and the other replied, "Then we'll keep reminding each other who we are." That's love as a verb. That's a promise carried out in calendar invites and late-night pep talks and knowing smiles across crowded rooms. The best part might be how their bond inspires the people around them. Colleagues mention the atmosphere on set when he's just had a morning call with her, how his patience increases, how he listens more. Friends gush about how she lights up when she tells a room about his latest risk and the way he pulled it off. This is the ripple effect of a solid connection. It doesn't ask for attention, it changes air pressure. So when we call this chapter Medican, love that tears down walls, we are really tracing the outlines of something both ordinary and sacred. Two grown humans choosing to meet each other in the middle every day, armed with gentleness, clarity, and humor. The ship named American made a cute banner at first, but now it feels like a banner of victory, proof that patience and devotion can rewrite a forecast everyone else thought they already knew. Consider what the early internet got right, though accidentally. In the shuffle of labels, Demet, Can, K, Camp, Daycan, aka, Ken, Demeta, Demetic Can, an accidental truth emerged. Love can carry many names and still be the same steady force. The typos and nicknames are just petals on the surface, the root is what matters. And at the root of this saga are Cenk, Torun and Mahassine Merabet, creating a private language that no headline can fully translate. Before we say goodbye, let's hold on to what this journey offers any of us bold enough to try. Empathy, the discipline of seeing from the other's window. Vulnerability, the courage to be known without decoration. Patience. A refusal to rush what is sacred. Unconditional support, showing up in sunshine and in storm. If you've been wondering whether love can still surprise you, whether it can still soften stone, look here. The answer is yes, and the proof is written in the everyday choices that built this bond from a spark into a shelter. Thank you for staying with us through this intimate look at a couple who remind us that the heart is stronger than the noise. If a moment in their story resonated with you, if you recognized your own hopes in the way they pause and try again, tell us about it in the comments. Which part of Dominican spoke loudest to you? Was it the late-night listening, the brave projects, the reconciliations by the water? We read everything, and your reflections make this community feel like a living room. If you felt lifted by this chapter, give it a like, share it with someone who needs a reason to believe again, and subscribe to Secrets Behind the Stars so each new story finds you right on time. We'll be back soon with another glimpse behind the curtain. Until then, take care, and let love light your way.